Taggart.
In 1983, a new character appeared on our TV screens, Detective Chief Inspector Jim Taggart. What began as a one-off drama developed into the longest-running police series on British television. Tough, uncompromising, politically incorrect, Taggart gave his name to a show characterised by gritty realism. A show that took the whodunit firmly out of the drawing room and into Glasgow's urban reality. Taggart now holds such a place in popular culture that it has its own catchphrase.
There's been a murder.
A catchphrase which Jim Taggart never actually said, but everyone around him did.
There's been a murder in Kelvinside.
There's been another murder.
There's been another murder.
There's been another murder.
And it's a signature that the series hasn't earned lightly. 25 years has seen hundreds of murders and victims meet grisly ends. Many famous faces have appeared as guest stars over the years.
The last person that did that near me wore his balls home for earrings.
Mark McManus, who played Jim Taggart, died in 1994. But the show that still bears his character's name has survived him and is as popular today as it ever was. It's a phenomenon. Over 90 stories, over 170 hours of film, over 20,000 pages of script, seen and loved around the world in more than 80 countries.
Allô?
La balistique.
Alors là, c'est eux qui devraient faire un petit effort. Ils ont un type qui tire sur les pigeons dans George Square. J'ai l'impression qu'on fait pas partie de leurs priorités.
Dis au mec de la balistique que je les pulvérise s'il ne se secoue pas les plumes, d'accord?
25 years on from that first episode, Taggart is still on our screens and has a devoted and noted fan club.
I love Taggart because it's all about quality. It's the quality of writing, of acting, the production values are absolutely fantastic. And I also like it because there is the murders, but then there's the humour.
I love Taggart because, try how I might, I never know who done it.
So many outlandish crimes have happened in Glasgow, according to Taggart. But, you know, you buy it.
Not surprisingly, some of the most ardent fans are from north of the border.
Taggart was an unmistakable character, and nobody was like him. Murder and Polis. Things that made him iconic as well as the series iconic.
I love Taggart because it's like being at home for a while.
I am a girl from Glasgow, so for me, Taggart epitomises everything about my home city.
Stop! Police!
The only police series to rival Taggart in staying power is The Bill, and respect is mutual.
The wonderful thing is, in the show, is the gory murders, which I love.
There's a great ensemble feel about Taggart, and I don't know whether that comes from the late Mark McManus, you know, because he was such a kind of company man and not a star.
Taggart was created at the start of the 1980s, when television was a very different place.
What's happening, sir?
There was no regular detective series on the ITV network, so I asked a writer to come up with an idea.
Taggart actually began in the unlikely setting of London's Covent Garden. I met Robert Love in a restaurant there, and he said, would you like to write a whodunit about a streetwise Glasgow detective? The first Taggart was called Killer. We generally believed that that was going to be the only one.
Casting of the lead part of Jim Taggart was a crucial decision.
Mark McManus was the only actor I ever thought seriously about casting in the role of Taggart.
Strangulation with the ligature.
We don't have ligatures in Maryhill.
I admired him tremendously because he was a much cleverer actor than he was often given the credit for.
And choosing Mark McManus for the role proved to be a masterstroke. He was universally admired as an actor and loved as a person, and perfectly crafted to portray the rugged lead role.
Mark was how I first actually understood that phrase about the camera loving people. I mean, anyone can see that he's a fantastic actor, but you really only understand it when you've been in a scene with him and then you see it played back. You realise that a pact had been entered into between the camera and Mark, and that the camera could actually see things in Mark's face that the naked eye looking at him couldn't see. A camera could see into the space where his soul was.
Mark McManus was popular with viewers too, and Taggart went on to attract audiences of over 18 million. McManus subsequently made a further 31 episodes before his death in 1994. But the series continues to be a great success without him, and 14 years later still bears his character's name, Taggart. In 1983, producer Robert Love and writer Glenn Chandler created one of the most iconic TV detectives of all time, Jim Taggart, in a one-off drama that developed into a series in 1985. It rapidly became famous for its unique, gritty style and its tough urban setting of Glasgow, and has remained a favourite with audiences around the world.
Oh, well, that's very nice.
Its initial success owed much to the man who played the title role, Mark McManus.
I thought Mark was a lovely man. He was an absolutely lovely man. And he very much took me under his wing.
Starring opposite McManus in the very first episode, Gerard Kelly has fond memories of his role as Taggart's first ever suspect.
I enjoyed Mad Michael because he was very much the red herring, you know, and there's him and his wee dog walking round generally acting suspiciously.
What the hell is he doing here?
It's weird to look back on it because my hair should get separate billing. It's almost a performance of its own.
In situ.
A reference to our undergarments.
Our knickers good enough for you.
For all his character's abrasiveness, McManus the actor was loved by his fellow cast and crews. He was talented, generous and funny.
Shite. That's vital evidence.
The first ever series, it was some wet day and we're sitting Renfield Street bemoaning our lot. And he went, oh, I've had worse, son, I've had worse. And he told a story that apparently he filmed an episode of Skippy the Bush Kangaroo in Australia. And they drove him in some open truck and parked it next to this outback. And there was a wee man that sat with him, and every 10 minutes the man would fill a bucket from a local stream and pour it over a bag that was in the back of the truck, and the bag sort of went... And Mark would sit talking, blah, blah, 10 minutes later... And after the third time he'd done it, Mark couldn't resist, and he said, what's that in the bag? And the guy said, that's Skippy. And as Mark said to me, he thought, if that's how they treat the star, what chances have I got?
Like most great detectives, Taggart had a junior sidekick, a crucial foil to drive the plot and characterizations. He was a clear contrast, a university boy from Edinburgh, D.S. Livingston.
The first 4 or 5 series were made with Mark McManus and the actor Neil Duncan, who played Livingston.
I should have you breathalyzed.
It's not beer. I was on liqueurs all night.
You sure it's a boys' school you went to?
And then towards the 5th series, Neil started to make noises about leaving. And so I brought another detective.
Morning, sir. The Taggart character and Jardin actually got on. We're out sort of the same drawer. So when I became the sidekick, they had to give him something that Taggart did not like. I'm a Christian.
Excuse me.
Having watched Life on Mars recently, the policing was very similar. Mark McManus was Gene Hunt. He was the guy that would not cut corners, but he would go about it in a rather brutal way when he wanted a statement. And I was the kind of person who would go, hey, can't do that anymore.
Oh, your eyes.
The death of your dear
you might be a
son
Christian, you're still a bloody detective.
We give you thanks.
Old-school Jim Taggart might be expected to have an opinion about women in his team, but after Blythe Duff appeared as Jackie Reed in 1990, she went on to star in more than 75 episodes over the past 18 years.
She probably doesn't even remember this, but when I was a reporter at the East Kilbride News when I started, and I was still a teenager, and I remember being sent along to do a review on a group of actors that were going around all the schools in East Kilbride and giving young kids a taste of what it's like to see live theatre. And I went along, and they were fantastic, but one actress stood out head and shoulders above everybody else, came back to the office raving about her. I said, she's got this quite an odd name, Blythe Duff. I think we might hear about her one day.
Hello, sir.
Hi. If you get any friendly with her,
You'll be posted to another station. And you won't be able to work with me again.
That'd be a tragedy, sir.
No surprise then that Reed's first appearance as a uniformed WPC was swiftly followed by promotion to the CID.
I'm a great, great, great fan and admirer of hers and her work. It's partly because she does something that I can't do. There's a tone that she has that I can't quite catch. Gina Gould is whiskey drinking, tough talking, get you by the ghoulies kind of person. But Blythe also has a look in her eye that she could do that if pushed. She just has a slightly quieter way of doing it.
There were traces of something else in this blood, Kristen. Do you know what it was?
With regular audiences of 13 to 14 million in the early 90s, Taggart had become an established and successful part of the TV landscape. But Mark McManus had a problem which the public knew nothing about.
He was drinking fairly heavily. We had various goes at trying to get him off it. The interesting thing was that I suppose people knew that that was the problem. And even the press, in a sense, knew that that was the problem. And nobody ever went public on it. It was the strangest thing, as if they had too much respect for him in an odd way. And so we never got nasty stories in the press about his decline. The two supporting leads at that time, of course, Blythe Duff and James McPherson, they were tremendously supportive to him.
People always said that that must have been difficult. But I had learned over the 5 years, if there's a big speech, you got to the stage where I'd go, do you know I think it'd be better if I did that?
My first big job in television was as a runner on Taggart, and he was having a few personal problems and he was drinking a lot. And I remember people sort of saying to me, you know, Gil, can you go and find Mark? He's like, no, I don't want to, because she's probably having a really nice time having a wee drink. But he was going through an awful time, but he still managed to get on with it and do it.
That year of '93, he first of all lost his mother, and then a sister in Australia died, quite a young woman, and then tragically his younger wife, Marion, was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she died a few months before he did, and it was a terribly, terribly sad and difficult time for everybody, really.
You could actually see the sadness in his eyes, and I think it came across really brilliantly in his character, because his character was worn, was tired, was like surrounded by misery, and Mark was, even though he was going through an awful time personally, he still came and did his job because he loved it, but you could see that tragedy and that sadness in his performance as well, I think.
I took him to the hospital because he didn't want to go, because an alcoholic doesn't want to admit that it's bad. But when someone's yellow, they need to go. And as it turned out, it was too late. And I think Mark was shocked. I think that the one that struck me was when I went to see him in hospital and he went, they've told me I'm not going to work again. And he was, I could see he couldn't believe it.
In June 1994, Mark McManus died.
His funeral was absolutely amazing. It was outpouring of grief. It was extraordinary.
The number of people who turned out on the streets to watch the funeral procession was amazing. It was, it was as if a pop star or a footballer or something like that had passed on.
I would say that he was the first friend of mine to die, which most people, that doesn't happen until they're maybe 60, 70. So it was hard.
The real funeral of Mark McManus was followed by the fictional funeral of Jim Taggart in the next episode, Black Orchid. After much persuasion, the producers were commissioned to make a couple more episodes with Blythe Duff and James McPherson as the leads.
They rose magnificently to the challenge because the ratings never changed. And in a sense, that's why the series was able to continue as it did.
But with Taggart gone, what was the programme to be called?
We had all kinds of suggestions and ideas. We thought the Taggart Files, the Taggart connection, Taggart's Glasgow. And then I thought, well, you know, frankly, Taggart is so kind of resonant as a title. And what is it? It's, in a sense, to use an advertising term, a brand name. Taggart developed as a team show more after Mark's death. First of all, you had Reed and Jardine. Then, of course, we introduced young Fraser.
Colin McCready arrived in 1995, playing Detective Constable Stuart Fraser, the youngest member of the new lineup. What Colin didn't know was that the writers were planning a radical idea for his character, which was to be another British television first.
So at the end of my first year in Taggart, I was hit with a bombshell by the producers that the character of Fraser was going to be gay and he was going to come out in the next episode. At the first I was quite shocked because obviously I'd spent a year playing the character not knowing that. But you know, people have said to me, do you feel embarrassed to play like a gay man in television? And you know, especially in Glasgow, it's more embarrassing to play a policeman. You get far more abuse in the streets. So actually I think it's quite good.
You must be DS Reed.
That's right. Jackie.
Robbie Ross.
John Meekey joined the production in 1998 in the role of D.I. Robbie Ross, the maverick of the team. He took professional risks and, in his own mind, he was irresistible to women.
How are you finding it?
Yeah, I like what I see so far. So, we must get together sometime. All of us, for a drink, get to know each other.
He came in flirting his way around the office, and you didn't bite. Jackie didn't bite.
Jackie didn't
you
bite.
Did, but
I
Jackie
did. I was completely smitten.
There was a time when Ross got Jackie to come over to his flat. He invited her around and said he'd try out some of his Italian cooking on her.
It's lasagna.
Who is it, Robbie?
Jackie, I'm really sorry. Something's come up at the last minute. I'm really sorry.
The Mike Jardine character remained in the series for 15 years, appearing in 48 episodes and rising through the ranks from Taggart's sidekick to becoming the governor himself. In 2002, in true Taggart style, Jardine himself met an untimely end.
Whoa!
We found a location down the river, down the Clyde, near Port Glasgow, which was actually the site of logging in the 19th century. So it still had these big posts driven into the shore. What's left there at low tide is a very strange kind of petrified forest of rotted wood. So we decided that we'd put his body there, and that allowed all of the cast to express their moments of grief on screen in a way that didn't require words. For Blythe Duff, especially, having been a working partner with James McPherson, who played Jardine for so many years, it was all too real, in a sense. She found it very upsetting. The emotional farewell, if you like, to a well-loved character.
DC Fraser.
Yes, sir.
Ballistics report. Do your tie-up, sir. Got nothing against shitlifters, but I hate sloppy dressers.
The same episode saw the arrival of Alex Norton as DCI Matt Burke, a new and charismatic boss.
I really like Alex Norton. I think he's an absolutely brilliant actor and love him in Taggart. I think he's just added a whole new dimension to it, to be honest. He's like the daddy.
If you want to kick my arse, feel free. Public's okay, private's better. The door is always open, but please, spare me the petted lips, eh?
The faces may have changed, but the essential formula remains the same.
The way that Taggart is structured, it's really a classic detective story. It's like an Agatha Christie.
I mean, I think Taggart is both a whodunit and a why-done-it. I think when we're setting out, when we conceive of the stories, I think you have to have the whodunit element. That's the essence of the show. You also want them to understand as to why the person committed the murder.
Quite often, I have absolutely no idea what's going on. None whatsoever. I'm completely perplexed. And sometimes we have actually stopped it, and I've said, you know, to Steve, my husband, or to my mum, if I'm watching it with mum, what's actually, it doesn't matter. It's great. Just keep watching. It's fantastic. It'll all work out in the end, and we'll know. And then we'll go, ah, that's what it was all about.
I think with Taggart, you've got Cluedo on the telly. You've got a Scottish Cluedo on the telly. You know, red herrings, everything that you want, and you know it's just a brilliantly packaged thing. Sometimes I watch these American things and they go, You know, I saw one recently, it was a CSI, and it finished in June or something of last year, and it was a cliffhanger, and they go, this will be continued in February of next year. And you think, no!
And for a series so grounded in realism, great attention to detail and accuracy are essential.
I do my initial work in the scripts, and where I'm really coming from is, first of all, a legal perspective, a police procedure perspective. Although I've got to bear in mind this is not a police procedural programme. This is for entertainment, it's a Taggart. But we've got to reflect some reality.
Welcome to Taggart 93. This is the last Taggart we'll shoot this year.
For the cast, production begins with a read-through.
We found a list among our things, 10 names.
Here, the principals get to meet the other actors and see the script for the first time.
A particularly frenzied attack, many blows, like the assailant lost control. On the day of the read-through, I go along and sit at the big table, and I have to read out all the stage directions, but also what we're doing is trying to time it as well.
I mean, the judge heard what he was like, what did they do? Put his wife away, he's still wondering about beating up women. It's about time someone put him in his place. But not you.
Behind the production of each series of Taggart is a large, dedicated team.
Today, I think on site at the police station we've got just short of 70 people, but that doesn't include the art department, the production team back in the office, plus the construction team and all those people. So in total, we're probably talking about 80, maybe 80 people.
Making Britain's longest-running police show is no simple task, and the challenge has also proved irresistible to many now established stars. After 25 years, Taggart remains a firm favourite with the British public and around the world. Today, it has to fight its corner in TV schedules that are now bursting with rival TV detectives. Although its original star, Mark McManus, died 14 years ago, its popularity endures where many pretenders have come and gone. The formula is simple enough, but making every episode calls for the efforts of dozens of skilled people. In this story, Stuart Fraser explores a disused colliery and comes across a grim discovery. Creating the impression that Stuart Fraser is a lone figure in this desolate scene required the coordinated work of over 50 people.
Cut. Finding locations in Taggart is fairly straightforward in many respects because Taggart's got a bit of cachet in the city. Everyone knows what it is.
One day a flyer came through the door, and it came through the door of everybody in my area saying that they were looking for a library to shoot a Taggart in. And I thought, well, that'd be quite fun, really, you know. And people, I have to say, including Blythe Duff, said, you're mad, ridiculous, don't be so stupid. What would you ever do having a Taggart crew in your house? But it was a great experience. What happened was they came and they tacked up all these pictures. And I thought, oh, God, you ever left all these holes in my wall? But, of course, the painter was there the next day. What colour would you like that, madam?
Glasgow is very much a part of Taggart, but filming in the city centre is never easy.
When we've been filming Sea of Souls, it's always best to assume when anybody stops me or asks me, or the people in the street who are filming, what am I doing, I will tend to say Taggart. It's become the word for filming in Glasgow. You know, I'm Taggarting. Whereas if you actually say what you're doing, what's that and when is it on and when? So the best possible answer is, I'm doing Taggart.
You have to shoot a lot of these things on long lenses to keep the camera away from the actors, to minimise the fuss around the actors so that they can merge with the general public. You get the mischievous side of people as well when they realise it's Taggart. And I wish I had a fiver for every time someone shouted there's been a murder during a take.
No, we'll be right there. No, we're on our way.
The essential police station scenes are shot in a more comfortable and controlled environment, but still hide a twist or two.
One of the weird things we have to do, particularly in the police station again, is to ask the extras if their feet aren't in shot to take their shoes off, because it just helps the sound guys. It keeps everything a lot quieter, and if they're clumping through a shot with noisy shoes on, then it really messes up the dialogue for the actors.
Makeup plays an especially central role in production. Taggart calls for some very special, quite gruesome skills.
Obviously on Taggart we have a lot of injuries, murder victims, etc., different types of killings. So that includes everything from stabbings to any other way of murdering somebody, right down to the basic bruising, and all of that has to be researched.
The most important non-speaking part in any Taggart episode is the dead body. But sometimes the demands on a corpse are too great for any actor. It's time to call in special effects.
We had a prosthetic body made up and sent up from London. We get it delivered and it's virtually ready. The wounds are there, but there's still some aging to be done on it.
We work out kind of how long it's been dead, and it can be adding blood, aged blood, depending how long the person's been there, dirt, anything at all to make it look as realistic as possible.
So Jim, the more you can get her head looking at Colin when he comes in, the better. We might just be able to mask her legs down at the bottom there.
And she's supposed to have been lying there for up to a month, so it would be pretty mucky, and you see the location is filthy, so we just use the materials that come to hand to age the body down and scuff the costume because she's been dragged through there and then partially covered up.
Taggart is about murder. And murder is a bloody business.
Taggart is and has been a gory show. I think when it started in the 80s, it was very gory for its time. I think actually it pushed the boundaries a lot.
Victims have been stabbed, electrocuted, poisoned, bitten by snakes, axed, frozen to death, crushed by a lift, set on fire, recycled in the trash, shot by crossbow, buried alive, chucked off a Ferris wheel.
All the deaths in Taggart are all sort of gruesome and, you know, beheadings and stuff and mutilations and whatever, you know. Mine was pretty gruesome. It's a violent death. It was a horrible death. My champagne was poisoned.
You couldn't even wait for me.
When I was, like, you know, retching inside and dying and, you know, frothing at the mouth. The props people gave me this, like, carton of either cabbage or pea soup, you know, and it was really gruesome looking. And I had to sort of, like, take a swig of that, and then when the cameras rolled, I had to sort of, like, do convulsions and everything, and so that it all sort of, like, comes out your mouth and all this green stuff. You know, oh, it was horrible, horrible death. And it was my first death, actually. And I've always wanted to die with my eyes open, like...
Of all the hundreds of murders that I've committed on television, I hasten to add, I think probably my favourite is the venomous spider at the Burns supper. That was in Nest of Vipers, in which the victim receives a package in the mail, opens it, finds nothing inside. Not knowing, of course, that a brown recluse spider has crawled into his dinner jacket. He then goes off to a Burns supper.
And they know what a glorious sect. Warm, rich.
Call an ambulance.
I played Debbie Thompson in Penthouse and Pavement, and she was a prostitute. And I had quite a dramatic opening. These chefs were out the back of the kitchen and they found two what they thought were dead bodies among the rubbish bins.
There's two dead bodies out here.
A long time ago lived an old woman who was also an enchantress, and her daughter was the most beautiful creature under the sun. But the old woman was ever thinking how to entice men in order to kill them.
Gingerbread is, I would say, my favourite episode. Of course, I look at the script, and I think I read the first page to my wife, and there was no dialogue. It was just a head getting down the steps, and she went, "Now that's a Taggart."
Taggart's simple yet challenging formula and iconic position in the TV landscape has always attracted great actors, established stars, and stars of the future.
I played the part of a doctor, and some years previously in South Africa she had treated a child and got it wrong. Knowing Glasgow as I do and you do, it has its fair share of wet weather. And we really needed it that night on this night shoot, but it chose not to rain. So I think they got either 5 or 6 fire hydrants, you know, with schnozzles like that, and it was extremely wet.
Come on, darling, close the door.
Well, that meant that we got soaked to the skin all the time, and the wardrobe department had anticipated this. And it's the only time in my professional or my private life that I have struggled into rubber underwear. I think at that time, you know, you couldn't buy rubber underwear in sports shops. You had to go to certain other shops, and I think the wardrobe gentleman on, you know, I had to sort of take a deep breath and ask for this, you know, and explain, of course, that it was for filming.
Yes, gentlemen. Police. Something I said.
It was my first year after drama school. I was 21, and, you know, Taggart was the big thing. It was huge. It was like the big job you wanted to get, apart in Taggart. Taggart comes and corners me, and it's this viaduct, and I'm walking backwards going, "It wasn't me, Mr. Taggart." The stuntman had done the bit when I was supposed to fall off the thing, and they had a big yellow bouncy thing for him to fall on. And then when it came to me, they took that away, of course, and I was doing the bit backing towards it, and they said, "Count to 10, and then when you get to 10, stop, and you'll be perfectly safe." And I was like, okay. But I forgot I had lines to say as well, so I was going, 1, 2, 3. "It wasn't me, Mr. Taggart."
Oh, come on, son. Leave me alone.
1, 2, 3. "I didn't do it." 1, 2, 3.
Don't be stupid. I've done nothing.
I nearly fell off the thing. They had to come and grab me. And of course, they used that bit because it looked so real.
Mrs. Davidson?
No, don't! Can't you smell the gas?
I had a nude scene in it. Come to think of it, it's the only other nude scene I've ever done. And I never mentioned it. And people say to me, "Is this the first time you did a nude scene for Calendar Girls?" I've always said yes, blithely, forgetting I've already done one. But I wasn't totally, I could keep my knickers on.
Take a seat, Miss
Judy.
Judy.
I'm a journalist. Completely unbelievable. I was a journalist who was writing an expose on the dodgy practices of a hypnotherapist who was only tangentially attached to the main thrust of the plot, as far as I recall.
How do you feel?
You need a lesson in anatomy, Mr. Dewar. My mind is up here.
I was definitely a kind of more of a red minnow than a red herring. I was just sort of in the wake of a red herring. That's what I was.
The episode of Taggart that I did was called Dead Man's Chest. The whole story has a Treasure Island feel to it. This character is Blythe Duff's cousin, and he suffers from something called Asperger's syndrome, which is a mild form of autism. I thought, that sounds like an interesting character.
It's a boat. Oh, spot on, son.
Well, Ruth Wilson, my character, was a businesswoman, successful, very hard, very tough, in business with her husband, who got in the way of her business and her extramarital activities, and she kills him. She was a pretty tough cookie, and I think she fooled Taggart for a while, and he kind of felt that he was a very wronged lady who just lost it.
You tell your lady friend to get out of that car. At least I believed her.
Taggart always has great endings, but I think ours was, one of the greatest.
Bizarrely, 3 of the current Taggart team have appeared in earlier episodes. but in different roles.
My first appearance in Taggart wasn't as DCI Burke. I came in as George Bryce, who was a butcher. Well, you were meant to think that I was the murderer. There was body parts turning up, and you see me kind of making black puddings and stuff like that. And the inference was, of course, that I was mincing up the bodies and putting them into black puddings, which is, you know, really macabre, really sort of great stuff. As it turned out, I was the red herring. And for years afterwards, I'd get recognised. I went on holiday once to, I think it was something like, it was Mallorca or Ibiza or something. And there was a whole bunch of holidaymakers. Oh, there's the butcher! Hey, here's the butcher from Taggart. You didn't be making pies, son.
The first appearance that I made in Taggart was in Love Knot. And I played this guy, a barman, who was one of the suspects. In the end, you found out that, in fact, he was a red herring, in classic Taggart style.
Like John and Alex, I was in Taggart before I was a cop as well.
What's this? What's what?
I played a farmhand. For some reason, they wanted him to be fat, so I had to be padded up. So I spent the whole film with, like, padding on and a big jersey.
Taggart relies on more than just the stars to create a scene. It employs many supporting artists, better known as extras.
I think for every Scot, there's a few things you want to do. The first is to meet Lorraine Kelly. I can tick that one. And the second is to have a role in Taggart. Now, I never thought, to be honest, as a presenter, that this would ever be possible. And having grown up watching the show, you just think, oh, it'd be great to be in Taggart. So when I was offered a role, I was very, very excited. I was a police officer, and I had to walk through shot taking the witness or the person who was under suspicion from one cell to another. You watch Ricky Gervais in Extras and you do suddenly realise exactly what all the extras go through.
You can't crack every case in 48 hours. They're not up yet. If there's some public response, that'll be a success.
I remember Tom Watson, there's an actor I loved. An extra was asked, as Tom approaches the scene, to go up and whisper in Tom's ear. And the camera was going to pan on down and find the body and all the rest of it. And Tom said to me, because Tom couldn't do it because he kept laughing. And it transpired that as Tom walked, this extra was going up to Tom Watson's ear and going, rhubarb, rhubarb. And of course, Tom was polaxed because they'd said, oh, see anything, rhubarb, rhubarb, you know? And so he actually went, rhubarb, rhubarb.
With 25 successful years behind it, what does the future hold for Britain's longest-running police series? Taggart is British TV's longest-running detective series. It's 25 years old and has survived its lead character by more than half that time. What's the next quarter century hold for the old man of crime drama?
I've been involved in Taggart for 7 years, and we kind of inherit what's the crown jewels. It was the crown jewels of Scottish drama.
Let's try and stand back a bit from the detail. Let's try and see the big picture here.
They love our characters. I think when you talk to people who watch our Taggart fans, they know about Jackie and Robbie and Matt and Fraser. They know what they're doing. They love all that, but they love the challenge of the show, and they love the crime, and they love the city. I think why Taggart is successful and has been successful is good storytelling. People turn on to see a good yarn.
A great story, a gritty murder mystery to solve, great guest stars, and nail-biting horror are all elements newer series have learned from. But Taggart also mixes a unique humour with its stories.
How's Jean? Oh, hi. Oh, that's nice.
What I still like about Taggart is I love the humour. I think the humour is very, very important. From episodes where we saw Colin at the gym, which is one of the best, one of the funniest things I think I've ever seen. I actually fell off my chair laughing at that.
You can have comedy in a terribly serious police drama, and it works. You know, one-off lines, like, I mean, Mark McManus was the king of that.
Sex? Not before breakfast.
I'm in the festival choir too, you know.
Oh, of course. Oh, no. The singing detective.
I think you should tell Gemma about the dismembered drug dealer's case.
After dinner.
We've got a severed leg near the Erskine Bridge. Human? No, the kind you put mint sauce on.
Does that feel good?
It might suit a hippo.
You've been a bad boy. Join the club. I've found it.
That's a jogger.
His kids entered him in a half marathon. Says he doesn't want to embarrass them.
Better tell him it's too late.
The great talent that Alex has, he's got a fantastic sense of humour. I mean, he's one of the funniest men I know. And I always like it best in Taggart when he's able to show that.
Good luck.
Who needs luck when you get good looks? A phobia is an irrational fear. There's nothing irrational but being fear of something that can kill you.
So you can cope when you find one in your bath?
I cope fine. Just had a wee bastard with a rolled up newspaper and flush it in the plug hole.
The humour on screen is matched off screen. There's a long tradition of wind-ups amongst the cast and crew, started by Mark McManus himself.
They teased me mercilessly because my body was eventually to float down the Clyde. And Mark would say, "Have they fitted you for the suit yet, son?" And I'd go, "What?" They'd go, "The suit." I'd go, "What suit?" "The scuba suit, do you under your..." I said, "I'm not going in the bloody water." "Oh, yeah, you have to, son. You're in." And so that probably means I spent most of the day going, "I'm not going in. I'm not going in that bloody water. You'll die in there. I'm not going to..."
I don't know if it's a bit of an urban myth or not, but when Mark McManus was in hospital, obviously he had to come out of filming Taggart one episode, and he was in hospital watching the news, and STV reported that he had died, and apparently, if the rumours are to be believed, he called in the nurses and went, "Excuse me, am I dead or what?"
Taggart has been shown in more than 80 countries. The Taggart formula is not lost in translation.
I've got a wee place in the south of France, and they show it in France, and it's called
Taggart Brigade Criminelle.
Brigade Criminelle. So all my neighbours have seen it. You know, I've not seen any of them yet. But my builder was saying, he said, "Oh yes," he said, "I saw it." He said, "You are the W with a Marseille accent. You all have Marseille accents." I suppose that's to make us sound a bit more sort of, rougher than like Paris or something like that. I said, "Really, Marseille accent?" I said, "What do I sound like?" He said, "Oh, you sound ridiculous."
Inspecteur Fraser.
Derrière vous, monsieur.
Le rapport de la balistique.
Oh, merci, monsieur.
Et soignez votre tenue. Je n'ai rien contre les homos, mais j'ai horreur des gens négligés. Je ne ferme aucune porte, mais essayons d'éviter de penser qu'il puisse s'agir d'une espèce de conspiration politique.
Mais il s'est disputé avec Johnny Hines. Sa voiture était garée devant l'immeuble.
Si quelqu'un a voulu éliminer Johnny Hines, c'est sûrement pas un écolo amateur de céréales avec un fusil à longue portée. Je veux les noms de tous ses amis, ses maîtresses, ses ennemis, ses associés, ses dealers.
Et son père?
Lui, je m'en occupe.
Taggart continues to attract admirers.
Taggart, 25 years. I mean, it's going to go on, isn't it? And I just congratulate them and hope they do more.
One of the great things about Taggart is that it's been able to seemingly effortlessly reinvent itself.
There's one thing that I could do on telly, and then I would quite happily toddle off. It would be to be on Taggart, but as I can't act, I just quite like to be a corpse. And maybe face down in mud, something really gory, something really, really, really horrible, something nasty. And all I'd have to do is just lie there. I can do that.
I've never been in one, and I'm really upset about that. I'd play a wonderful murderer.
Maybe they might bring me back. I don't know. They might revive me, resuscitate me, and I'll come back as a suspect. Let me be the murderer or something.
Actually, when Mark died, someone did write into one of the papers and suggested that Sir Alex Ferguson become the new Taggart, like as if he was going to give up the Man United job and suddenly become an actor. So I went up to Sir Alex Ferguson, because I've got a friend who's a big Man United fan, and I said, "Excuse me, Sir Alex, could I possibly have an autograph?" And he turned to me and he did a double take. He said, "Is it for you, son?" And I went, No, it's for a friend." And he went, "Thank God, I'm sick of your bloody face." He said, "My wife bloody tapes your stupid programme, and I'm away in Europe playing against AC Milan, and I get in at 3 in the morning, and she's taped Taggart, and I have to sit in the house, and all I want is go to my bed and have a wee drink maybe, and I've got to sit and watch your stupid face and watch Taggart." So I couldn't work out whether he liked Taggart or not, but he certainly knew who we were.
But he certainly sounds ideal to take over from Mark McManus, isn't he?
With or without its original lead character, a quarter of a century after its debut, Taggart is still a leading name in TV crime solving, a name synonymous with tough plots, realistic action, dark humour, and murder most horrid. Taggart, 25 years of murder. Many happy returns.
This is DCI Bunch Control. Urgent assistance required.
it is clear that is a wrap, everyone. Thank you. Taggart 92 complete.